Hi, everybody, and welcome on in to another episode of Eye on the Eagles, your all-access pass to all things Avila Athletics. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett. I'm your host. We are live from Tanner's at Redbridge, less than 5 minutes away from the Avila campus. Our first guest on this Monday morning, head softball coach Charlie Kennedy. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
And congratulations on a stellar start to the 2024 season for you and for your girls. 8-0 to start off KCAC play, 21-9 as we stand on this Monday morning and in the national picture, nationally receiving votes for the first time this year. A lot to cover. Where do you want to start off and what's been an excellent start for you guys?
Tim, we're just excited to be at this point of the season because truly what you build the preseason for is to build some mental toughness and thickness of skin, and our kids really have endured a lot and travel to Texas, travel to California. So now getting into conference play, I think we're playing pretty good ball, but we've got room to improve.
What you and I have talked about all year, even leading into the season, before you guys had even stepped on the field really for the first time, was toughness of opponents, strength of schedule, difficulty, and battle readiness going into conference play. And based on what you and I talked about a little bit this weekend, and then also now it's reflecting now that you're in the national receiving votes tier, I think it's safe to say that strength of schedule is really borne out to this point of the year.
You know, I'm sitting with a player a few minutes ago in the office, and we're looking at her bats from the last three doubleheaders, and that's the point that came up immediately was that, you know, while the pitching's been pretty solid since we started conference play, it hasn't been the pitching we faced, so it's been okay. You know, so we've been comfortable in our own skin to step in the box against their top thrower and go up there and have quality bats and put runners on base and move them over and get them in. So we're just fortunate right now. There's some things going our way, but part of it is just a belief system in what we've accomplished to this point and how hard we've worked.
I think it's fair to say that you guys have not yet seen the best teams in the KCAC to this point. A lot of them are on tap over the next 2 or 3 weeks. But even with that said, two things on that. Even though you haven't seen the best teams in our conference yet, the teams that you have seen in non-conference have prepared you for everybody that you have seen in conference play and everybody that's coming up. That's your goal, right?
Absolutely. You know, and you can only play the schedule you have in front of you right now, and our goal is to beat the teams you're supposed to beat twice and to at least split with the teams that are at the top of the conference in order to keep yourself in the hunt for a regular season championship. So right now we're where we need to be, and we've got two good opponents this week that we can stretch our legs a little bit and try to get ready for what's coming behind them.
And on that point, even though I don't think we've seen the best teams in the league yet, you said you got to go out there and win the games that you're supposed to, and you've done that. You've won every game in conference play so far. 8-0 as we start off here on this Monday morning. It's got to feel good, right?
It does. You know, you got to compliment the coaching staff. We're a different hitting team than a year ago. We're hitting with confidence. Mike has done a tremendous job. Mike McFadden has an outstanding philosophy of hitting, and our kids have bought into it, and you can tell that in our on-base percentage. You can tell it in our slugging percentage. You know, to be putting some home runs on the board in the way in which we are right now, to have our team batting average up over 320. Those things are all important to us. Causing problems for the other team is a focus for us with getting on base. And, you know, we're fortunate to have the kid we have at the top of the lineup, and Chelsea's having a great year. But right behind her, Kazem has done a tremendous job here recently, even though Katie Wentworth did a great job in that 2 spot for a period of 2.5 weeks, including all through California. So, you know, our lineup right now is batting over 300, everybody 1 through 9. It's hard for them to take a breath in between batters with, you know, who they have to pitch to. And that's really a benefit for us right now. If you look at the defense right now, we've made some tremendous plays. We've had some fluctuation of the lineup in and out of people getting a chance to get out there and see what they're capable of. But now it's pretty settled into what we need to have on game day. And then it's how many kids can we get in the game. And that's the responsibility of the starting lineup, is to open it up so we can get more kids in the game off the bench.
That is something we've seen consistently now, just in league play, but then, you know, even spreading that out into your trip through California on our first doubleheader against Park, we saw a lot of pretty much everybody on the roster get in at different points. We'll talk about the pitching staff here in a minute, but just in terms of the bat and the glove, we have seen everybody on your team play to this point of the season. Maybe it's, you know, only 2 or 3 games, but still that's 2 or 3 games that they've had the ability to go out there and show what they can do at a varsity level, to say nothing of the JV contest that we've seen so far. We've seen a half dozen of those. You have had the opportunity to showcase what you have and give those quote-unquote other players the opportunity to get out there and show what they can do as they audition for bigger roles, not just this year but in the future as well.
You know, kids are being great teammates. They're supporting each other well. You know, to go to California and Nevaeh Crisco doesn't touch the field for 8 games. And to get her in at bat in the York doubleheader and to have the team go crazy from the bench is what this is all about.
Yeah.
Seeing our kids grow with the amount of seniors that we have this year and making sure that we've gotten a taste of this so that next year we just step in and fill a void. That's what's really important. And then when you look at this, something we talk about a lot, the old verbiage of a flying V. You can't have the same kid lead all the time. And we've had different leaders lead the lineup. Steph had a tremendous doubleheader against Bethany before we left for California with 3 home runs, and it gets 2 home runs in the first games out in California against Westcliff, gets named NAI Player of the Week. And by the time we get back from there, she's the last day in California hitting some more home runs. So we've really done a great job of lose a kid to sickness with Steph. As soon as we get home from California, she's out ill for a couple games, and Brooke steps right in and picks up where Steph left off, and she's gotten hot as a firecracker. Montana's been very steady, and she's a threat every time she steps in the box. We've got some great weapons that are also in the lineup because Holly Campbell's doing a tremendous job behind the plate back there along with Myra Megley, but Holly's bat's been very solid and very consistent. Julia Douglas is doing a great job for us protecting those hitters. They just got to pick who they're going to pitch to, and it's hard to have the hitters that are still stacked right behind those speed that's in the top half with the 1-2 hitters. And I'm telling you, when you move down to the bottom of the order right now, Kitty Wentworth and Kennedy Lara had a tremendous doubleheader down at Tabor where they were on fire from the bottom of the order. They were setting the table for the top of the order for it to come back around. So we're very fortunate. We've had some great production off the bench. Maya Richards has some great at-bats off the bench to start innings for us the entire year to lead off an inning. So there's been great tools for us to use. There's great depth, but our kids are really open to learning and learning a role.
Let's talk pitchers for a little bit because we have seen now to this point in the year a bit of a philosophy shift compared to last year because you're deeper at that position than you have been over your first 2 years here, where in the past and even dating back to years before, the team had a de facto number 1 pitcher, somebody who owned that spot and pitched very well in that spot. And maybe that's what you're building towards, but this year we've seen a lot more of pitcher by committee, and we've seen that just in this past week where Montana Stengel throws one great game in Game 2 against St. Mary. We're able to piece the other game together and get a win. And then you come out over this weekend against Tabor. Michaela Cotton throws very well in Game 1. You're able to piece together Game 2, and that to me is not necessarily been a luxury that you've had over the last couple of years, and it's been fun to see a lot of different arms get out there throwing a lot of different roles, something you and I have talked about, and by and large succeed in all of those different roles.
Alden Wildey, our pitching coach, has done a tremendous job with our pitchers. Tally Cole's done a great job with us as well, with helping to go out to California and call pitches. Between the two of them, they've handled the staff. And when you look back just at the California trip, Sean wasn't exactly pitching all that well, and then she stepped up in a great moment on the second day in California and beats number 7 in the country, Hope International, with a 5 1/3 outing. Came back 3 days later and beat Menlo. So she had 2 great starts out there. Those were important to us because we had eight games in 5 days. But Cotton's been very consistent this year. I can tell you she does the best job right now of staying ahead and getting off the plate and forcing them to hit her pitch, and our defense is making plays behind her. I've told each of them, Montana, the game you mentioned against St. Mary's, that was a dominant performance, and it went from being good to better and great. It was just outstanding 7 inning on her part. She just kept pushing. What our pitchers needed to understand this year is last year for Sean and Peyton Walter, it was really difficult because they had to pitch so many one-run games. We weren't producing the runs on the board, so they're out there throwing great games, but it had to be a perfect game. We've got the luxury to make a mistake and to spread some hits out here and there because we're going to put some runs on the board. So right now our goal is to make them put the ball in play, least number of pitches. Go at hitters and let our defense make plays behind you.
2 more doubleheaders rather coming up this week. Weather has shifted. The first one, it's now on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. Does that make a huge difference in your approach or game plan going into this week?
No, I don't want to fail to mention the ones that are also contributing because, Erin just gives us 3 strong innings at Tabor, and it's her first collegiate win, and it's her longest outing of the year, but she's been instrumental in what we're doing. Maddie Withy has gotten some starts this year, but she did a great job in relief to finish out a game last week against St. Mary and then came in relief against Tabor. So, we're growing our younger players as well from the pitching circle, but, we're going into a week right now where the games that were Tuesday now being Wednesday, it's going to be warmer temperatures. They got a lot of rain yesterday. It's a city park. They don't have a tarp for the infield surface.
Right.
So we're letting the field dry for an extra day and possibly getting it into the 50s instead of mid-40s.
That's got to help.
Yeah, because it was a cold day down at Tabor the entire day. But, you can only take the opponent that's in front of you. You can only focus on one at a time, one game at a time, one at bat at a time. I think our kids understand that. We considered last weekend to be one of a few upcoming trap games where if you take your foot off the pedal, there's somebody good enough there to beat you, and that's what this conference is showing right now because there have been some tremendous wins for certain programs. So we've got a doubleheader sweep over somebody the first game of KCAC, and they just doubleheader swept, the number 2 team preseason picked. So, you don't want to let your foot off anybody. If you've got the ability to get them, you have to go get your wins in order to be able to establish yourself as a contender for the championship at the end.
That's what this team has proved as one of those middle-of-the-pack teams, if you will, in the conference 4, 5, 6, 7 seed at year's end. Over my first few years, Avila has been the team that has proved you can't sleep on anybody because there's a team out there on any given day who's capable of taking 1, if not 2 games off of the quote-unquote better teams at any given time. And now that you guys are one of the top teams in the league through 8 games, it's now looking the other way. We're now looking at all the quote-unquote other teams in the conference saying, all right, you've already taken 2 off Bethany, but they're going to go out and take 2 off Friends. Sterling just blasted Southwestern the other day, kind of out of nowhere. I was impressed by their offensive ability in that doubleheader. Southwestern has struggled pitching this year, yes, but see what Sterling did in that doubleheader was impressive. Evangel gets a win off Ottawa. The list goes on. This conference is so even that just about, and I feel like a broken record, if you've watched pretty much any other episode of this show this year, we've talked with just about every coach at some point this year about how even the KCAC is, and as the semi-neutral party here, that's fun because you're going into games thinking, all right, yeah, we've got a really good team. You guys are playing extremely well, but we don't know what to expect from Sterling this weekend because they're capable of at least giving you guys a game, if not outright competing. So, and we saw that from York in game 2. I mean, they competed for a large portion of the game. You guys ended up winning by a run rule, but it wasn't easy. So that's what's fun about this conference for me. Maybe a little bit more stressful for you, but it's at least intriguing.
Yeah, your blood pressure raises a little bit here and there when you play with teams instead of play your level against teams. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, Sterling coach is doing a great job with her team. She's got them playing well, and they're a factor. There are 5 teams right now sitting in the middle of the pack with a 4-4 record after 8 games. But Evangel split with Ottawa, showed that everybody's capable. McPherson split with Ottawa. There are some good teams ahead of us still that if you don't come to play on game day, you can take a loss. I think what we did in the last 2 years was we get a win in the first game and then take our foot off the pedal the second game and split with somebody we weren't supposed to. And that's the thing that we're focused on the most right now is how to maintain that level of competitiveness in our at-bats, in our approach when we step to the batter's box. So all those things are just growing tools for us for the meantime. And so I think kids are doing couldn't be more proud of our kids right now. Yeah, truly, it's been a grind to get them through all the fundraising we had to do to get to Texas, get to California, and now to play in conference and to be playing well and to really respect the game and your opponent so that on game day you understand why this is earned. There's no given. Even the opportunity for the player to get in the game, that's an earned opportunity. It's not we're trying to get everybody in. No, I'm trying to give you an opportunity to earn something more than maybe what your role says right now.
We've talked a couple of individuals. I think we'd be remiss before we wrap things up to hint at one more. You mentioned good approach. I think that certainly is borne out over the past week. Michaela Cotton, former KCAC pitcher of the week this season. Stephanie Hayes, former KCAC hitter of the week this season. Nothing is official as we get close to noon local time on Monday morning, but I can tell you right now, Coach, that Brooke Bellflower, it's hard to have a better week than she did this past week. Finishes 10 of 11, couple of doubles, couple home runs, team leader in both RBI and runs scored over the past 4 weeks. Over the past 4 games in a 4-0 week for you guys this past week, all in conference play. I'm bumbling through this intro. All of that is to say, Brooke Bellflower had a tremendous week for you guys this past week.
And we needed that. Steph was out with the 2 games to start the week. Montana went down with an arm injury in the middle of the games on Saturday. When you stack them up against each other, it's one thing, but when you start losing pieces of it, someone's got to step forward and go, we're still planning to do our job today. And Brooke was she was a monster in the box. They kept going at her, and she kept saying, "Okay, I can play this game with you." I think what happened, you said this in the article last night about Saturday's game, 16 singles in a game where we had 17 hits. We really did everything Mike asked us to do in that game. We stayed in our legs. They worked the outside corner. We drove the ball to the right side or up the middle. Didn't try to go up there with a kill mentality and just put balls in play. And Stephanie Hayes did a tremendous job with that, leading off 3 different innings with a leadoff single to get on base. Even though it didn't show in the book, Holly Campbell had a smoked line drive at the second baseman and one at the shortstop that were hits that got taken away. But I think our kids have made adjustments like we've asked them to. Our bunting was outstanding Saturday, and we weren't doing that well in situations. There are things that we can clean up a little bit more with our base running when it comes to advancing on balls or not trying to advance on a ball. Those things are still part of the game. But you don't have to be playing your best ball yet. You need to play your best ball late. So we're trying to grow the lineup into understanding the importance of little things, and quality at bats and execution of a play and teachable moments are all things that we preach every day.
If this isn't your best ball, we're looking forward to seeing what that might look like. A couple of more important games coming up for Avila over the next week or so. Wednesday at Southwestern, then this Saturday the Eagles return home for a KCAC doubleheader against Sterling, and then next Wednesday it's the big one. KCAC preseason favorites Ottawa come to town. That's next Wednesday. We know that the team is looking forward to that, as they have been all year. So this Wednesday at Southwestern, this Saturday at the Z against Sterling, and then next Wednesday at the Z against Ottawa. That's what's coming up for Avila softball, who are now officially receiving votes in the NAIA poll for the first time in 2024. That's head softball coach Charlie Kennedy. Thanks for joining the show, Coach.
Tim, thanks for having me. You're doing a great job. We appreciate you.
Much appreciated. Congratulations on all your success so far. Looking forward to seeing what you guys can do from here. That's head softball coach Charlie Kennedy. This is Eye on the Eagles. We'll be right back with our next head coach in a couple of minutes. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Eye on the Eagles. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett, now joined by head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Pleasure being here, as always.
Right back at you, as always, and congratulations are in order as you complete officially your first season as our official head women's wrestling coach. End of the year earlier this month at Nationals. How are you feeling now that the season is officially in the books?
After a couple days of being able to breathe and think about things and reflect things, pretty well. I think I'm doing pretty well right now, and think pretty well. Pretty productive season, I would say, all together. But we, as we knew going into the season, we've got work to do. So we're excited for the opportunity to have that work to do.
Now we're going to talk a lot about the postseason on this show because this is our postseason wrap up, I guess, with you. So let's talk first about KCAC tournament this time last month at Doane. You bring your full team there. Not everybody is able to roster all 12, and you guys did that. So, a number of other teams did, but not everybody did, and that was something that was a hallmark of your team all year and something that you were building up to when you were with us the last time. Something that we talked about was just getting a lot of different athletes in. We had the opportunity to, I think, from my vantage point, there were some spots that were on that final 12 that were open in the final month or two of the season. Obviously, you had a lot of your mainstays that were set, but you were able to kind of hash that out as the year went on and then take that full set of 12 over to Doane. So how do you feel that the season built up into the conference tournament this time last month?
Yeah. So kind of like you alluded to, especially from last year. I think last year we only had 3 at the tournament. Yeah. So to have a full roster there, that was one of our goals at the beginning of the season. So we were able to accomplish that. And like you said, able to accomplish that by presenting opportunities throughout the year to all the girls. A lot of them, some of them dealt with injuries, that kind of thing. So we decided to redshirt them towards the end of the year. But the ones that kind of had a full consistent season, they kind of worked out and they were able to give themselves an opportunity to compete at conference. And that's what this sport is about, is opportunities. And they were ready for it and they stepped up for it. And again, it brought 12 of them there, so that was a good on our end. I think there's only 5 teams in the conference able to do that. So we're again trending in the right direction, but still got a lot of work to do. So we're excited to get back to work.
One of the things that you and I talked about before we went on air just now is how large this conference is compared to some others. There are so many schools because it's not just the KCAC like it is on the men's side, for example, where it's just schools that we are used to from other sports because it's just KCAC like we just said had in softball. with Coach K earlier, there's a lot of other schools that are in the conference as it stands right now for women's wrestling, which is what we saw when you were on the show the last time talking about the KCAC GPAC duels. Saw a lot of those other schools that we don't see all the time in other sports, and that is how this conference tournament is built. You've got all those other schools that are there because that is how this conference is constructed in this sport. So that means the flip side of that is that all those other schools are good in women's wrestling. There are a lot of good individuals. Almost all those teams were ranked or receiving votes, so that makes that this conference tournament really competitive. I think maybe even more so than on the men's side, where there are a couple of really good teams, which certainly that bore out as we talked with Coach Mateo last week. There were a lot of good teams and good individuals in the KCAC/GPAC at women's wrestling this year, and we got to see all of that on display in the conference tournament.
Yeah, definitely, and that's it makes it, I guess, nice for us because we get to see them, we get to compete against them all year. But yeah, same thing. A lot of tough teams, a lot of tough individual athletes in that tournament in the conference. So it is certainly nice seeing them multiple times throughout the year, and that's again, that's what we want. We want tough competition and certainly in our conference tournament, but throughout the whole year as well to have those. So to be able to have those teams that are close. Considerably close,
right?
Geographically speaking. But it is nice to have them around and compete against them, and not train against them, but train directly around them and that kind of thing. But to have good competition to propel not only the conference but each individual team forward as well.
One of the other things that we talked about is just the building up to the national tournament, which we'll talk about next. But the fact that you get to see those individuals and to an extent those teams multiple times, either at those events or at weekend tournaments, whatever the case is, over the course of the year, you are seeing consistently some of the best athletes, and in our conference's case, some of the very best athletes at their given weights over the course of the year. So something that you and I have talked about, something that we've talked with Mateo about as well on this show, is that is done consciously, right? So that you are continuing to get those reps, that experience, that exposure to some of the best athletes in the sport, so that when it comes time to make the postseason, whether it's conference or nationals, that those athletes are now comparatively more ready to see those best athletes when it matters the most. That's consciously done on your part as the year goes on.
Yes, absolutely, and not just on a competition standpoint, because obviously we want to wrestle tough teams, tough opponents to get better ourselves on the mat, but it's important to see that in fruition on the administrative side as well, because that's like you're alluding to here, that's directly how our qualifying process is worked out, right? The top six, if you're ranked top 16 in the country, that's going to earn your conference a bid at the conference tournament to qualify for nationals. So, you don't find yourself in the top 16 if you don't beat someone in there.
Sure.
So, we have to, as you said, we have to consciously seek out that type of competition, and we felt like we did a pretty good job that this year. I think a lot of our look at the girls that are on the conference team, a lot of their last 12, 15 matches, probably half of them are against nationally ranked girls. Again, giving them opportunities to not only see them, but start beating some of those girls. And that's what it takes to earn a bid for the conference, and that's what it takes to ultimately get out of the conference tournament as well. Beat some of those high-level opponents and earn yourself the trip to nationals.
As this sport evolves, and it's something that we talked a little bit with Coach Mateo about last week, and I know that it works the same way on y'all's end, on the women's side, you guys know going into the conference tournament at every weight what everybody or what any individual athlete needs to do to move on. In other words, you know that, all right, if you finish top 3 at this bracket, you get an automatic berth to nationals. And some of our brackets in the women's side, you had to finish top 1 to get the automatic berth to nationals. So this is something that you and I talked about going in. So I know it's something that you're very well aware of. Is that so what is your approach as a coaching staff going into that particular tournament where, in other ones placing is great, but you know that you need a certain place to move on? Do you tell the athletes that, or is it something that only you and maybe Tess know, or how do you approach that tournament specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question. So every athlete's different. Some of them want to know all that information. Some of them don't. So you kind of present it to them in the way of, hey, this is you win it, you're in for sure. But what kind of my message was, wrestle to the best of your ability. Do good things on the mat, and then whether you earn it or not, we've got an opportunity to fight for you to get you through on whether the conference at large or the national at large. So yeah, really just going out there and giving it their best that day, and hopefully collecting some wins along the way. Like you said, a lot of the weight classes only had one, maybe two bids at it, so pretty much do have to make the finals. And ultimately that's what we're out there for. A 20-year-old Tiger Woods once said, "Why am I competing if I'm not trying to win?" So we're especially this time of the year, we've got to win those tournaments. We've got to win those brackets, and that's what it is. Because we are trying to get to nationals. We're trying to do those things, and again, you don't really get there if you can't win when it matters, right?
How has this sport evolved over the last couple of years? You have been part of this program now since its inception, even though this was your first year as our official head women's coach. But when we started wrestling, when you and I started, here together, the first year of women's wrestling at Avila was the last year of invitational status in the NAI. In other words, the last 2 years, they have turned that into a championship sport, and the qualification process has been different. And that's something that you did a good job of explaining to me when that changeover happened. And so I've tried to convey some of that as the seasons have gone on. But can you help to explain now how that process has changed, how different it looks now over the last 2 years, and this year especially, compared to year one of the program when it was invitational status and we got a lot of different wrestlers in, compared to the last 2 years where we've only got two? And the reason that is because it's a lot harder to get in.
Yeah, certainly we can walk through that. So year one of the program, that was the last year of the invitational. So at that point, everyone, really anyone that was healthy was able to compete at that tournament. I think there was about 330 competitors in that tournament, give or take, that year. So with that, NAI kind of had a target number of programs and competitors, what they wanted, and I believe the program number was 40 at that point. So that year they kind of reached that program number. So from there, I was able to go to an official championship, and with that became a qualifying process. So now it's not just who's around; it's you earn your trip out to nationals. The first 2 years it was based off rankings in the conference, or national rankings rather. Both years, this year and last year, the number of competitors at the tournament was 210, and I believe that number is gonna, with the landscape, with the how new the sport is on the women's side. That's going to constantly change. Again, there's target numbers that the NAC and the NAI are after to kind of make it a quality tournament, right? And same thing with the bracketing committee and the coaches committee. We're all in agreement that growth is good, but it's got to be sustainable growth. You can't. If it was still invitational, the tournament would be kind of watered down. Quite frankly, it'd be a big tournament that had to draw it out probably another couple days. Just logistically, not as feasible, right? So they got target numbers for that, and with that, I think it's a good proponent because it produces a good product. Right, we were fortunate enough this weekend to host the men's Division I national championships here, 15 minutes from campus, at a great venue, and that's one of the best sporting events of the year for any sport. And yes, I might be a little bit biased, especially when it's right down the road from you, but it's electric, and that's what ultimately we were trying to replicate on the women's side as well.
What was that event like? As Coach Mateo mentioned on the show last week that you guys were going to that. The NCAA Division I Men's Wrestling Championships were held here in Kansas City over this past weekend, and you guys brought a whole troop out there to watch some of the best college wrestlers at a different level of college compete here in town. What was that like?
Yeah, it was, as always, it's a great tournament, and not just competition wise, but it's motivating from hopefully from an athlete's perspective, hopefully from a fan's perspective, certainly from a coach's perspective. They're ultimately battling for the same thing we are, just different, wearing different colors, that type of thing. But again, a lot of them had opportunities to compete this weekend. Some of them were able to reach their dreams. Others, those dreams are shattered, and that's the beauty of the sport. Everything is earned, and even if you give your best that day, you're not going to get what you want, and it's the lessons that you can learn in life from that really replicate, really exacerbate what the sport can do for a person.
How much can you learn from watching? And I know that you and I have talked about this when you've been on the show over the course of the year, even flashing back to the work that you guys did and the experience you got when Ukraine was here last semester. So I'll kind of ask it in a different way. How much can you, not just you specifically, but you in general, learn from just exposure to this sport at any other level, especially when you're watching NCAA Division I men's over this past weekend. How much of that can then you apply to what you're doing, in an NAIA women's team, right? So can you learn some of that stuff? Is it transferable into different levels, different genders, different competitions, whatever the case is? The sport is so fluid in that sense that I feel like there's a lot of that is transferable from one level to another.
Yeah, absolutely. You can learn many things there, and it doesn't matter what level. It doesn't matter what tournament. I spend a lot of time at youth tournaments and youth practices as well, and I'm learning things there. There's situations that'll come up in those situations that don't necessarily happen at our level yet, or maybe they never will. But you can certainly learn from it and take from it. And that's from a technical standpoint, but you can learn so much more from it. Watch some of those high level coaches. The best wrestling coach in the world was there, Cale Sanderson. He's pretty good. They won 14 of the last 15 or something like that. So there's always something you can take away, again, whether it's technical, whether it's from a coaching perspective, whether it's from just a relationship networking connection. Definitely walked by a handful of Olympians, Olympic champions, all kinds of things, and that's the beauty about this sport. It's, especially this time of the year, it's pretty humble, and most people are pretty humble in those situations, so you can go strike up those conversations, and you can build relationships that last a lifetime. And again, you might pick some technical wrestling stuff up from it as well, but it's so much more than that. It's as we've mentioned before, they're in the trenches together. It doesn't matter which trenches they are. They all, at the end of the day, they all kind of look the same. They're chasing the same goals, and ultimately not worried about the results, but worried about the process and the growth, not just as a wrestler, but more importantly as a person.
Here's my hardball question for you for this week, because we didn't have any automatic qualifiers to the national tournament this year. We already talked about how the selection process, the qualification process, is so different now this year and last year than it was the year prior, where just about anybody was put in automatically, more or less. It's a lot more of an exclusive field. Brackets are a whole lot smaller than they were a couple of years ago, so you just mentioned there's 100 fewer athletes at least compared to 2 seasons ago, so that just proves that the field is a lot tighter. What was the process like over the couple of days after the conference tournament in Jamestown to when the brackets were announced the next week ahead of the national tournament the week afterwards, knowing that you didn't have anybody in there automatically and you were going to have to do some work to make sure that we got a couple of people in as an at-large? And I know that you had a little bit of work specifically to do yourself to do that, but even that aside, what was that couple of days like for those athletes, knowing that they were on the fence, weren't sure if they were going to get in or not, felt comfortable that they would have a good chance but weren't in automatically compared to maybe the year before? So what was that experience like?
Yeah, like you mentioned, definitely work on everyone's perspective, work and kind of worry, right? But at the end of the day, kind of like we mentioned earlier, it was frankly the toughness of the schedule that got them through, right? Both Markayla and Shannon had some good quality wins over the year, and they found themselves in the rankings most of the year, so they're nationally known, nationally relevant. So their names are up there on the board pretty much the whole year. So that certainly helped their cause. But again, once they got to that time, it's kind of looking at, okay, who has the best wins that's not in this tournament yet, and also who's got good quality of competition over the season. And again, like we mentioned, especially those two, their last 12 to 15 matches, I'd say they probably both at least wrestled 10 ranked girls in those matches. So the committee knew that they weren't just losing matches that they shouldn't lose. They were tested. They were trying to prove their opportunities to get themselves there. So that's I believe that's a big reason why they were both able to get through in that selection committee.
Mark especially. I mean, I don't remember all the details at this point. It's been a couple of weeks since I've really looked at the roster, if you will, of her opponents. But I was thinking about when she was in the national rankings and then when she was officially announced as an at-large qualifier. Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Just I think pretty much everybody that she wrestled over the final month or 6 weeks of the regular season, everybody was not just national ranked, but a top wrestler. And obviously, she's in that list as well herself, but all of her opponents were some of the very best, not just at her weight, but 1 or 2 weight classes up or down. So she was extremely battle tested going into those Baker duels, yes, and then the KCAC championships, some of the wrestlers that she had to face there, and to say nothing about what Shan accomplished over the course of the season. I mean, just Mark specifically, she's a known commodity, I think, at this point, as she's been, nationally ranked just about every single time over her 3 seasons now as a wrestler, but especially over the last 2. But it was no surprise to me when all was said and done that those were your 2 representatives this year. Like you said, they were all, nationally ranked the entire second half of the season, so they were known names and faces at that point. But in terms of your most consistent athletes, your heaviest hitters, Markayla Lottie and Shannon Briggs they really were the 2. They're at the top of the list all year.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's what gave them the chance to go out there and wrestle at the national tournament. So, they a lot of the girls that were in the brackets, they saw them throughout the year. They had a couple wins over those girls in the year. But again, the nice thing about it is they both got seasons of competition left. Hopefully they'll take these lessons that we learned. They both wrestled pretty well out at nationals. But yeah, hopefully they use that as motivation and just get back to work and get better and be taking home some hardware in the next couple of trips out there for them.
How would you evaluate their performance at nationals? Because if you don't know by now, they both went 0-2, but there's a little bit more to it than that, right? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, her first match, she lost to Eastern Oregon girl 10-9. Saw a lot of good things in that match. She was getting to her leg attacks, which isn't very prevalent for her. So not only did she get to some leg attacks, she scored on it. And same thing with some parterre turns. She was able to get some and really, honestly, it was probably the best true wrestling match I've ever seen her wrestle. So super proud and super, excited about that. And again, hopefully she uses that to continue to grow from that. But just didn't quite have that last move to get it. Lost a 1-point match, which really doesn't happen that much at the national,
sure.
Or not just in freestyle in general. So again, she gave herself an opportunity, and just didn't quite go her way that day, and that's nothing wrong with that. And then her second match on the backside, very familiar face, Saporito from Ottawa. Saw her in the semifinals at conference and a couple other times throughout the year. I think we beat her once and ended up losing to her 3 times on the year. And Saporito was a blood round girl. And again, same thing. We're right in that match the whole time. Kind of made some of the adjustments that we need to from the earlier matches that we dropped, but just not quite enough. Again, gave herself an opportunity. Just didn't get it done in that particular match. But that doesn't take anything against her season or anything like that. It just wasn't meant to be that day, and that's fine. That's part of the sport. Again, she got more opportunities and more likely going to see that same exact wrestler again. So I hope to bring in another sport. The ball's in her court now. What does she do with it from this point forward is really what I'm looking for after coach. Again, I don't really. For lack of better words, I don't care about those results of those matches. Is what do we do now from lessons that we learned from that tournament? And the same thing with Shannon. She saw 2 girls that she saw earlier in the year. She drew the number 8 seed right away, first round of the tournament. She dropped that one, but that girl went on and got 3rd in the tournament. And collectively, Shannon was one of her 4 losses in the year. Her other 4 losses were the eventual champ, eventual runner-up, and her training partner. So a lot to be said with that. Again, and quite frankly, that match was a big reason why she was there at the dance, anyways.
No doubt.
But she's proven that she can contest with those type of girls. It's just cleaning things up, and again, perfect example is that tournament, just cleaning little things up. And again, she's a freshman, so she's got plenty of opportunities to clean those things up moving forward. And then on her backside match, same thing. She saw the Jamestown girl that she saw last round of conference for the 5th and 6th place match, and conference was at 191 was super deep. There was five bids there, 5 automatic qualifiers, and again we saw. Yeah, they saw each other earlier in the year as well at the KC AC duels. So again, just wasn't able to get it done. But familiar faces. So they're prepared for them as we were prepared for us, or vice versa. But yeah, they collectively pretty proud of how they did, not only at the tournament but in the year. And again, it's not collectively, it's not how they did now. It's what they use, what motivation they use this for moving forward.
How would you evaluate the tournament as a whole? Like, it seems like You already mentioned, as we got started, there are fewer seeds in the women's side compared to the men's side. There are fewer athletes in every weight class compared to the men's side. Maybe that'll change as the sport, evolves over the next few years. Obviously, this, as we said, is only year 2 of championship status for women's wrestling in the NAI, so they got a lot of years to catch up to what they've done on the men's side. It's fair to say, but even with that said, there are fewer seeds, smaller fields. It felt to me like ultimately all of the weight classes were pretty chalky. I mean, your semifinals were 1, 2, 3, or 4, or maybe 1, 2, 4, and 6, 1, 2, 5, and 5 and 3, things like that across the board. Your top seeds were the last women standing, and then your championship match almost exclusively were 1 versus 2 or 1 versus 3, and the number 1 seed won almost all of them. So that certainly happened a lot on the men's side. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the number 1 seed was in almost every title match, as you would imagine. That's kind of how it should be, right? But I felt like the women's side this year was pretty chalky, if you will. It is March, after all. We're using that term a lot these days. Is that a fair assessment? And if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. I think part of the reason why it is, it's as we mentioned earlier, it's been a sustainable growth. So the top level, really all the talent's becoming more consistent. Everyone's kind of growing at a good pace. Same just with the tournament itself. It's growing number wise at a good pace, especially for the venue and everything like that. I love the tournament being up in Jamestown, North Dakota. I always enjoy going up there. It's kind of my old stomping ground, so
it means a lot to you.
Makes it good. Yeah, it's usually a good time for me. But ultimately, it's nice to I use it as our advantage. I know not a lot of the other coaches can like driving in those conditions that can present themselves up there. So I like that. But yeah, I think it's a great tournament, competition wise, facility wise. Great host up there at Jamestown. Again, this is my third year at the tournament. The wrestling itself has gotten so much better, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. And it'll probably, the tournament itself will probably grow athlete wise with the growth of the sport, and I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, it's I think kind of like we mentioned, it's a good sustainable growth because it's not growing too quickly, it's not growing too slowly, so they're kind of growing together as the programs, but the competition level is significantly increasing year to year, and we see that not only at our tournaments but at the high school level as well. There's a lot of good high school wrestlers right now. A lot of them wrestled at college events this year, won a lot of college events, so not only is our level getting better, but the feeder programs, everything like that, is getting better as well. So this tournament is going to continue to elevate year to year, I believe.
And do you think that'll help kind of what I was pointing out even out a little bit? Because to me, it was just looking at, and I only got to watch some of the matches, right? But just looking at results, if your number 1s and number 2s are consistently in your finals and winning those, that to me just seems to indicate that those athletes are just heads and shoulders above the field, if you will. And so as the sport continues to reinforce itself, we get a lot more athletes that are interested in it. I've seen a lot of stories from across the nation this year about how fast wet wrestling and women's wrestling specifically is growing at the youth and high school level. So if that continues to now trickle up into the college ranks and in the NAI, I imagine that means that we'll see things start to even out a little bit more, and it's less of just, your number 1 seeds are so good that they're going to probably win it every single time.
I believe it'll be a good combination of both. There's always going to be that guy or that girl that's just head and shoulders above everyone else, and saw that this weekend at the men's Division I national tournament. There's guys that I think 6 of the champs were preseason number 1s.
Oh wow!
They're number 1 at the beginning of the year for a reason, and it's not like they're working less because they're number 1. They got there for a reason, so they're probably going to continue those work ethics and everything like that. And I think we'll see the same. I think we'll see the same on our side as well. There will be some weight classes that at the beginning of the year, that number 1's probably going to win the thing, but there's going to be other weight classes that, for example, like 125 at the men's division championship. It's chaotic all year. No one knew who was going to get that. There's probably no one that got the bracket right. So there'll be certainly weight classes like that at this division as well, and that's just part of the sport. Sometimes people run away from their constituents, and other times it's a lot more level playing field.
What are you involved with now? What are you guys working on now as we are in the final week of March in 2024 with Nationals a couple of weeks in the rearview mirror? What are you guys focused on now as you wrap up this season officially over the next couple of weeks?
Getting better. Focus on getting better, working and getting better.
How does that manifest? Like, what do you physically do for that?
Well, 24, 25 started about a month ago, right after the conference tournament. It started a little bit earlier for some others, so they were able to train through our training process through that. Excuse me. But, yeah, we'll start our postseason here pretty soon. The girls are running open mats practices right now, still lifting everything like that, but, really just becoming students of the sport. I put out this last week that we should be watching this tournament, even though it's folk style. Again, as we mentioned earlier on this show, you can learn from any level. So really, just becoming more students of the sport, working harder, just getting on the mat and developing.
What are you personally looking forward to now as you finish up your first year officially as our head women's wrestling coach?
Same answer. Getting better. Looking forward to that. Learn a lot of lessons from year one. Certainly got a lot more lessons to learn, but ultimately, whether it's coaching, whether it's wrestling, whether it's life, just getting a little bit better every day. So I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to get better myself.
What was this year? We kind of mentioned when we started this whole school year, we knew that it would be a little bit different for you personally because, as I said at the start of this episode, you've been a part of this program now from day one. You've been part of the program now for all 3 years, but this year was a conscious design on the part of the program, on the part of the administration to, keep the teams together. They're both wrestling teams, but it's under one program, right? It's the wrestling program, but they are separate teams now. So now that you're through this year officially, more or less, how did that manifest, and how different was this year, if at all, compared to the first two here for you at Avila?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it was certainly different. More responsibilities, more time, and quite frankly, just more athletes. Which is a good, not a problem because it's not a problem to have that, but it's a good change, right? But yeah, definitely, just more. But I took the role because I was looking forward to that. Again, just like the wrestlers are working hard on the mat, like, it takes work to get to where you want to be. And, that starts, for me, that starts in the office, that starts, in the wrestling room, wherever it is. But, I'm not going to shy away from work. So, I took those challenges on with as opportunities, right? Again, learned a lot of lessons from my first year as a head coach, and going to continue to use that to get better as a coach, and hopefully save some time in future years so I don't have to take so long to do certain things, because hopefully you get a little bit better after you do it once or twice. But yeah, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to run and lead this program, and excited to see where we can bring this program. But again, it's going to take work, and we're looking forward to that work that it's going to take to get us to where we want to be.
We're excited to see how that work manifests over the next couple of months and over the next years too for you as well. That is head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier as he finishes off his third year with the program and his first as our head coach. Congratulations on completing this year. We're proud of you on what you and what the athletes were able to do this year. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for having me as well.
It's always a pleasure. That is head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier. This has been Eye on the Eagles. Thank you as always to Tanners at Redbridge for hosting us. Thank you to my team for helping make this possible. Keaton Ashby and Darian Miner for all the work they do for me and for us. So for all of them, and once again for Tanners, I've been Tim Hackett. You've been watching Eye on the Eagles. We will be back same time, same channel, Monday mornings at 11:30, and then later on the Avila Athletics YouTube. Same as always every week with two more coaches coming up next week. So for all of them, once again, I'm Tim Hackett saying thank you for watching. We will see you next week on Eye on the Eagles. Until then, so long and be safe.